Recording. All right, so welcome everyone. Our first meeting of 2022. It feels like we're halfway through the year already, to be honest. So yeah, we'll get straight into formalities. So once again, we're in a virtual meeting. I just ask everyone to mute themselves when we've got the presentations going. Ask questions throughout the sessions in the chat, and also feel free to use the chat to just introduce yourselves and otherwise, yeah, get engaged with the conversation. And we will have this recording up as well. So if you can't make the whole session or you want to forward it on to people. So the first one this year, we've got some really great topics, and particularly the two key topics that we've got here today. We will go through a bit of an introduction and background about the group and how you can get involved and how you can find out more about bugs. We do have a small prize as well, which I'll talk a little bit towards the end. We might try and come up with some interesting way to win it, unless we get lazy and we sort of fall back to default ways. But we had a couple of ideas, but we'll see how we go there. Yeah, and then we'll find out a bit more about how you can get involved in future events as well, which is another key thing for us. But the background of bugs, really, it's run by the industry, so we're all just volunteers here, and we do have support from the vendor in Bluebeam, and they do a great job to help us get the word out there. And but it is a submission from industry, and we're all involved, and we just want to see people sharing their knowledge around these topics. So this is Melbourne based, but with the online nature, we really do have a wide reach now. We've had many global speakers, and we'll look to do more of that throughout the year. And we've got Chris here from Sydney, from ACOM, or Canberra now, ACOM, presenting on this one. So I think the online nature really does help us expand, and we are focused also on trying to get smaller, users of Bluebeam, particularly regional areas. And I think the online nature really does well for that. But it is a group of people coming forward to share their knowledge. So there is a number of bugs all around the world, and that's grown quite a lot. And a lot of them are online now. So there is a lot of great content available, recorded, and otherwise on the YouTube channels. But there's some really great groups around the world, and it really is interesting to see how the use of Bluebeam differs in those regions. There's specifically a Sydney group in Australia as well, and plans to try and break into the New Zealand market. I'm not sure how the plans there are going, but they're hoping to get an Auckland bug up and running sometime this year. So for those in larger organisations, definitely try and get your teams involved in those regions if you've got people that are interested. And it really is about the industry. We need everyone out there to contribute topics, whether you're happy to present or whether it's an idea of a topic you want to know more about. That's also useful for us to help source the next topic as well. So a bit about myself. I'm the chair of the group, but we all sort of contribute. I'm a digital director at ACOM, and I'm based in Melbourne here. Otherwise, we've also got Lachlan, who I work closely with, based in Melbourne as well, structural engineering background. And I think anyone who's involved in Bluebeam knows Shannock. He's a technical sales engineer and knows enough to be dangerous with Bluebeam. Let's be safe. And but yeah, we're very, very well connected in the industry, and we definitely rely on him to let us know where we should be focusing. But we're definitely open to anyone else if they want to contribute to the group. Definitely keen to hear from you. It is, fairly low maintenance role. And it really is just about connecting with people in the industry. But it is a good opportunity to learn a bit about running a user group. So definitely be interested to hear from anyone if they're interested in joining us. So with that, our first speaker today, getting into the content, is we've got Peter and Angeline from Arcadis, and particularly with this one, knowing some of the background of what's been done there, I think we're going to have some really great content here of hearing how the strategy of implementation has gone at Arcadis, and some of the the tips they can bring us, I'm sure, will be very valuable for a number of our users, depending on no matter what level of Bluebeam adoption you're at. So I'll hand it over to Peter and Angeline and get straight into the content.
Thanks, Ben. Just let me know when you can see the screen.
Yep.
Just waiting on my end. So thank you for the calming music up front. That was very good. So
yep, we're good now.
It's all in the mood. So just bear with me. It's just still loading up my end.
Yeah, we've got that on this end now.
Yeah. Of course it goes reload. I might drop out my camera if it's okay.
Yep.
We just did a test run 10 minutes ago and we didn't have this issue, so that's a good sign. Reload display, okay. So, okay. Not loading my end. So Angeline, you online? I'm going to stop presenting. Can you try and present your end to see if it's my end, please? I live up near Lismore, everyone, so we do have sometimes the area where it floods a little bit and also where internet is in and out occasionally, so just bear with us.
It wouldn't be one of our events if we didn't have some kind of technology, something going on at some point.
No.
So all good.
That's good. I've got a plan B if this doesn't work. Angeline, do you want to see if you can present out of PowerPoint your end?
Yeah, I'm trying to pick.
We can see that.
So can you see it now?
Yeah, I've got blank screen my end. This is awesome. Yeah, okay. I'm flying blind here. So, Angeline, could you, sorry, again, techie issues. So I'm going to go plan B here. Could you just kill that share screen, please?
Sorry.
Yep.
This one?
And we'll go to our plan B when these things don't work.
Yeah, share
So,
screen. Want me to share my screen?
no, don't share your screen.
Right.
It's okay. I'm going to try and share my screen to see if this works. See if this screen comes up.
Yeah.
Can everyone see your screen?
Yeah, I can see
Yep.
your screen.
Yeah,
Yes,
cool.
we can.
Okay, so Angeline, just have your PowerPoint deck on the side when we click through, and then you can take control when need be. Okay.
Yeah.
So thank you. So apologies a bit, the bit of delay. So yeah, so what we're going to take you through today is around how Arcadis has been trying to control the Bluebeam standards probably for the last sort of 15 months. So it's been a bit of a challenge, so I'll just bounce through the next one. Okay, so a couple of things I'm going to go through is really what we had to understand is like the why we were trying to do it, like why the standards are important, the what, you know, what did we want to achieve out of this, and most importantly, how we were going to do it. So this is a bit of a snippet. It's not the full implementation, but it should give you a couple of guidelines of how we approach this scenario. So a little bit about us to start with.
Yeah. Hi, I'm Maria Angeline Quizes Montes, but you can all call me Quizes. I've been with Arcadis for 6 years as a senior CAD technician, and I've been assigned as a Bluebeam champion for GEC Manila and been working with Peter since last year for the development of the digitalization. Peter?
So, yep, good afternoon. So Peter Harris, I know a number of you from the industry. So I've come from the A2K world into Arcadis. So I've been in the industry for a fair while, worked with Shan closely for many years. So any bad habits, that's probably on me. A little bit about Arcadis. So just as a high summary, there's roughly 29,000 Arcadians across the globe, which is sizable. In Australia alone, there's around a bit over 1,500. That includes the GC. So GC is our Global Excellence Centre, which in this case is Manila and India. So we have obviously strong connections between Australia and the GEC. When I started and took over the Bluebeam role, what quickly sort of morphed into what we're showing today is there's over 550 Bluebeam users. And really what I identified pretty quickly was COVID was forced upon us, which I'm going to go in a minute. And really there wasn't any processes or standards set up. So as mentioned, COVID was probably the biggest trigger. And from COVID, what that actually had to do is really just force a new method of how people can share knowledge. In addition to that, there seemed to be a lot of self-learning. So 500 plus people were YouTubing, Googling, didn't really know how the vendor could help in that process. So there was no formal training, and really there was no consistent method of how things were being done. And that is from a state to state and across the country, which made it difficult. In addition to that was obviously from when everyone was locked at home is how do we deal with someone overseas? So dealing with collaborating with GEC. So the traditional was obviously emails, which were a struggle, and doing screenshots. At the same time, there was a bit of a mix between Bluebeam and Adobe. So a lot of those screenshots and markups in some loose form. In addition to that, we were trying to look at really saving costs as an ability here going this process, and really the cost was the time. So being self-learnt, self-teaching environment, the studio sessions weren't being used, so there wasn't that real live natural environment that we needed. And no matter how good what people were achieving, one of the feedbacks I received was accountability. Turning this on in a digital form, many people were struggling around accountability processes. Who's accountable for following those markups? How did I know those markups were being done? So that was obviously a very large highlight across the managers of why we're doing this. Kisses, over to you. Sorry, I'll go allow. Apologies. Yep, far away.
Yeah, there. Everyone can hear me?
Yes, yep,
Yeah.
loud and clear.
Yeah, so since Peter mentioned about the COVID-19, so this is forced us to have a work from home setup. Yeah. Yeah. A work from home setup. So which means all of our daily routine in the office needs to be adjusted that will suit our current situation. So we need to learn how to collaborate and communicate the drawings and files across the organization without compromising the quality of work. And since we are working at home, quality assurance is becoming digital and paperless. That's why we need a software like Bluebeam to accommodate all of our needs. But the lack of understanding is a roadblock to attain that because we don't have a designated person to conduct a formal training. We only rely on the staff that have few basic knowledge on the software to explain the efficiency of workflow if we use the Bluebeam software. So another roadblock that we encounter is the availability of software. Yeah, since we have readily existing Adobe Acrobat, we need to convince the staff on using Bluebeam on the project on how we can integrate files and drawings from ProjectWise, where we store mostly of our project. Also, we can lessen the back-to-back email and come up with a better means of communication. Yeah, Peter?
Okay, so that's the
That's
background. So what we were trying to achieve, so in basically standards, really there's sort of 5 criteria, which is around efficiencies, consistencies, QA, trusting, and probably improving our skill sets. So what we found from efficiencies as a marker, we wanted to get 10% improvement over and above. Like, we were being realistic. We couldn't change everyone overnight. The consistency is, as mentioned earlier, was probably the greatest challenge. Is when we've got 6 major groups in the business, and that's from rail, roads, highways, buildings, energy resources, you're going to have all walks of life. Everyone wants to do it differently. So trying to get a consistent method that could become basically an ACADIS standard, but also trying to get the consistencies in approaches so people could leverage the skills off each other. Like all good companies, we've got a strong QA process. So we had to also keep that in mind. We had to ensure that our quality was not being diminished, because in the end, that's where when we produce something for the projects and getting constructed, it had to be followed. As mentioned, which around a high level of trust accountability. So this one here, to be fair, is ongoing. Most people are now understanding how Bluebeam can be used for a high level of trust and accountability. It's visual, but is still a lot of the environment out there, a lot of users and managers that still aren't quite sure. Now, whatever we were going to do in the process, which we'll go through soon, is we had to benchmark. As you can sort of see in the diagram on the right-hand side, I went through to understand just a base skill set. Now, the 3 as a marker wasn't you're an expert, but it was at a proficient level of why you were using the tool. Because like all software, generally 20% of software only ever gets used. This was the method for themselves to be able to move up the skill sets. Okay, so how was the best method we were about to achieve this? So probably a couple of things we had to work out as an overarching was quick access. We had to work out, it had to be quick access for people. We had to be able to share knowledge to make sure that the information is quick and easy to get to. We had to set the standards, which is what a lot of this is about. Enablement. We had to put the tools, the training, the information in people's hands quickly. At the same time, there was only Angelina and myself. That's 2 of us. We had to create a community internally. We could not do this on our own. So obviously, we also used Shan and used Bluebeam a lot to help in this process. And support. The power of knowledge is great, but actually providing a support mechanism around it was probably more important. Because as you know, when you open that can of worms, there's a lot more questions coming through. So part of how we did this, today we're not going to go through all these steps, but we mapped this out. We had to plan ahead. So we created basically an overarching plan of the process through what we needed. Probably one of our first things we had to do is how will the users access this? So this is our back end. So obviously we use SharePoint. Some companies use different things. It doesn't really matter. We had to find a way. In addition to just finding a way and where to store things, that's good. We had to get the information in people's hands quickly. So we use different techniques through Teams as a vehicle, which Angelina will go through very soon, which is good. In addition to obviously mapping this out, we had to understand what was needed, which was around the tool chest profiles, etc. Now, steps before this, we had to do a survey. We had to do a survey at the beginning, we had to implement, and we had to do a survey at the end. That's where I was going through the benchmarking. So we had to understand where we were starting in this process. And as good as all the implementation is, we had to apply it to a job. So this wouldn't become just a science experiment. So once we got this up and running from the training and the standards in play, we started rolling this out in jobs. And currently at the moment, we've already found some errors. So we are already evolving this and going forward. Survey. So I'm going to go into a bit of details now. So just a couple of things, right? So send a survey out. Like everyone's time poor, so not everyone gives us a result. So we sent out to a bit over 450 staff, which was okay. Got about half back, which was good. Probably a couple of things if you're ever doing this from a survey point of view. Limit the survey to around 5 minutes. We did around 20 questions. We want to measure their skills. We want to understand why were they even using Bluebeam. We also want to understand if they were using what was their knowledge. So a couple interesting results, what we found, 5% of all the those that replied on the survey were at beginner level, what they measured themselves. 98% of the staff wanted formal training, so they were coming off self-learning. 52% would like the training to be quick, short and sharp. They 8% understood some basics, like if it's hyperlinking and how a PDF could become interactive. Not many were aware there was already past Bluebeam material that our predecessors had already put in the system, so no one knew where that lived. Less than 10% were aware that Bluebeam could be used for in our QS for of quantities, so something that I know Bluebeam prides itself on. And really 7% only understood the basic functions of Bluebeam. So we were starting at a pretty base level to understand this process. Now, once we obviously mapped that out, we invited training programs. So this is where we worked in collaboration with at the time with Bluebeam, but we sort of come up with, I suppose, a couple things of what was going to be key. These sessions had to be short and sharp. Everyone's busy. What COVID has taught us, it's no longer a 9-hour day job. So people are finding less time. So our training sessions were 30-minute max. We avoided Monday and Fridays. We had to have regular sessions to keep basically the traction going. We mapped out basically a 10-pack as a starter pack to be able to get the output of what we required in this. We had to minimize disruption. So to do that, we optimized for a time. Seemed to work. That was at 12 o'clock, 12 to 12:30 on a Tuesday, every fortnight to every month, which was great. Results sort of started to speak for themselves. So generally over 550 people were invited. We averaged around 185 per session. So over, I think it was a bit over a 3-month period, we had touch over 1,800 staff attend an ongoing training session, which was pretty cool, right? To actually see how they're actually leveraging the information. And we've used now this training method for other products. We've definitely sort of found a bit of a sweet spot of how we work. Angeline?
Yes. So, so how was the best way to achieve our goal? As Peter mentioned earlier, we have a quick access. Yeah. So we create an MS Teams that is designated for Bluebeam user. We have built a sub channel for the topics that user can easily access. These MS Teams are all connected to SharePoint that we had set up for all the products that Arcadis is using. This enable us to shape a Bluebeam community on our organization that will provide user not just a source of information but also sharing knowledge. On the next slide, we're going to discuss how we set the standard, how the enablement works, and what are the support needed to achieve our goals. Yeah. Our challenge was how to have a community engage and add value. So we need to assemble standards on how we can use Bluebeam and its features. We then develop a static page. Yeah, this page consists of series of files and drawings representing a physical page on profile, tool chest, line styles, and hatches, and all other important tools inside the Bluebeam. This will become like a one-stop shop for the Bluebeam user, where you can just click the needed configuration and it will be loaded on your Bluebeam interface. Our journey on finalizing the look and how it will work is not an easy task. We have encountered several revisions. Even the sizes of the pages that will accommodate the tools that we needed have several revisions. And then we then decide that it will be a user-friendly if the look of the static page is similar to the interface of Bluebeam, as you can see. The important thing about developing this page is asking support from different disciplines on how they do the markup and what tools they usually use for quality control. Once we have set up the standard and generate the static page, our next step is how we can make it active and operational. Inside the environment that we build, all Bluebeam user can find a learning path, a suggested training that is based on what discipline the staff is under. It is also indicated here on what level of training you need. If you're under the basic, intermediate, advanced, or even an expert level. It is also essential that we provide a training menu. This will serve as a refresher across the organization. And our process was to ensure this was an interactive menu for ease of use. Provided on the left-hand side is the links to other pages and other material. It's also taking note that the learning path and the training menu are all links to Arcadis custom material and Bluebeam Online. To make enablement successful, we need to have consistent and continuous support from Bluebeam users. By means of using MS Teams list, it enabled us to create a strong connection to the vendor and the user. New Bluebeam user can ask questions interactively and vendor can answer what would be the best practice. This allows us to capture the general knowledge of any software across the business and will push new user to connect the environment. Sorry about. Yeah.
You good?
Yeah. Uh, so we have created an environment using MS Teams list as mentioned earlier. All the database is logged in and cataloged in it. and can be open on SharePoint. Choosing this environment allows the user to filter the topics, document types, discipline, and software as software we are searching, such as the standard tool sets, profile, static page, including the workflows and the best practices. Yeah, Peter?
Yep. Go back one. Okay, so thank you for that. So yeah, after we went through and set up those standards was, as per the diagram, we had to remeasure. So we did a second survey. Not everyone wanted to fill out the survey. Again, time poor, but same principles. We did a 6 to 9 minute survey. We asked a few more questions where we actually wanted to understand them in words, what they were trying to use. 17 questions at this time. Again, the results started to give us the feel, were we on the right track? Because like anything, there was no use repeating this if we were missing the target, if we were not getting the results we wanted. So we were definitely starting to see the improvements from novices to intermediates to advanceds, which is great. We'll still got a long way to go. And we probably have found the more users that are coming online are starting at the base level. Our greatest struggle is getting that base level to go through that sort of same bit of training information of what we mapped out last year. As mentioned, applying the projects. Probably the one key takeaway that I suppose is don't take for granted as a good training and standards can be, is applying to projects. So as towards the top left, we started creating flow charts of how this gets to use. Those flow charts up the top left, they are interactive. So that means it's a document that can sit in projects, which works well. The other one is project dashboards. I learned this at a Bluebeam conference a number of years ago. I probably didn't take it to really just didn't understand how it could be used. So what we're actually doing now, over and above a Bluebeam dashboard, just for Bluebeam, we're actually using it for all of our projects. So this is also our access to digital execution plans, access to different project-wise environment. It's basically a quick link page that sits inside a Bluebeam set. So what we found is if users are leaving their environment and having to go with Teams or SharePoint and searching for things, we are trying to get it back to, as we always said, the 3-click rule to try to get in there. In addition to that is just understanding the power of SharePoint, how you can get the connection there. As you can see, there's a bit of a link there for those that need to take a photo. So that, that gets you quick access to be able to open up a PDF directly inside a Bluebeam session, which works really well. And as mentioned, I suppose in the end, we were reviewing. So we have mapped this out across all the projects. Probably the other thing to understand with the projects is understand your other vendors. So we use ProjectWise for their suite. We use Autodesk for their suite. Understand how they can also connect into Bluebeam. How can you use this environment? So that arrow top right, that's now basically a continual loop. So we're now improving, and we'll go through and we'll recycle based on results and start a training group 2 later this year. So as I mentioned, that's our journey. So far from perfect, but we're getting there. Questions?
Well done, guys. That looked really good. I don't have any questions. I've been seeing what's been going on in the background.
Yes, you have, mate.
I reckon it's just super impressive what you've been able to achieve and at this kind of scale that you've been able to roll it out. I think one of the big challenges for so many people is they create great little profiles and workflows and then find it difficult to actually get everybody on board and how you implement that. So I think that's super interesting. I was wondering, Peter and Kisses, if you would be able to maybe elaborate a bit on how you deal with toolset updates. If new people are creating or modifying toolsets, how do you go about kind of managing revisions and in that profile and sort of updating and making sure everybody are getting that new information?
Okay, so I might take that, Kiss, so that's all right. So at the moment, we're trialing a couple of different things. I'm waiting for Bluebeam to open up all the backend APIs so I can do this a bit more automatic. So, but our current process is With our tool chests that get rolled out, we are part of where we saw the in the SharePoint page of where we're basically getting that database environment. Those, and if you haven't used SharePoint, I suppose this is the advantage when you get around it, is we can version control those through SharePoint. We can actually create a communication dialogue on what versions they are. And in addition to when people need to load in the latest, we've always got the latest in there. We've got the archives. That's where we're using the project dashboards and other environments. So it's a quick link to be able to then people draw down. How do they, if I've already got, say, a stormwater one today and a new one turns up tomorrow, that's where we're using our community page, which is through the Microsoft Teams. I'm sure it'll improve. That's our current method.
Thank you. That's really good.
Yeah, it's that balance between letting users customize versus locking it down. I think where some organizations lock it down, but yeah, I think you kind of, if you do lock it down, then you need to obviously support that to a higher level. So it's a bit challenging.
Yeah.
So you referred to Australia. Is that still sort of Australia and Manila in that environment, or are you expanding that globally, or is there interest in expanding it globally?
Yes. So UK and US have started to get a little taste of probably what we've been doing. To be honest, those countries are a long way behind even seeing the value of Bluebeam, which is interesting. So we've done a number of presentations across to a couple of those just to show them that they don't have to start from scratch. But the challenge with all those countries, again, comes back to the accountability and the trust. Them to take that leap of faith of why Bluebeam as a product can actually help them in the workflows versus their traditional screenshot, throwing it on an email. I can trust the email. That's where they're on their journey. So they're getting there. I'm just trying to find a few little champions over there to start that kitchen talk at the moment. So,
yeah, I think what we've found through the bug, at least, the US, they may be using it, but they're very much just touching the surface of features and functionality. And I think from the Australian perspective, we tend to dig a lot deeper into in pushing the software to the limits, is just my view. Because often sort of the stuff that we get into kind of blows them away, and the speed of looking at some of the other user groups, they're very much it's a bit slower adoption, and functionality is a bit more limited. So I think that's something that we just see in the Australian market. We tend to really push the features a lot more, which is
the Australian way. We like breaking it first.
No, that's great. Any more questions from anyone else? It's quite a lot of useful content just to see, I guess, how to do it. Obviously, there's still pains and struggles, which I think you guys communicated well of, and that ongoing engagement is key as well, isn't it? Of keeping that going, and the commitment to it, I think, is what you've shown there. It's not just a couple of sessions that you get someone like Shanok in to run. It's an ongoing thing to build the capability over time. People aren't always ready to take it all at the first two sessions. They need to work on that and keep building.
Yeah, probably adding on that, when Shan did come in, one thing that worked really well on one of those sessions, Shan actually flipped it. He actually made the users present, and I think that was pretty important from our end to actually see. You've got to be able to sort of see where people are using it and not using it, and coming to setting standards. I generally live by an 80-20 rule, so 80% set the standards, 20% leave it open enough that people can adapt and evolve, because projects are different. So I think having a couple of those sort of setups and principles seem to sort of work well on large organisations. But it could work for small as well. So.
Yeah, I agree to that in the sense that it works well. It's almost like a therapy session where just coming along and coordinating and just see what everyone else is doing. And it was some of my favorite parts, honestly, is like somebody from the civil team is saying, I've got these civil pits I've done, and then someone else will write in the message in Teams, like, where is that saved? And okay, frustrating internally, you didn't know where other people's stuff was, but on a constructive note, someone else is learning it, and they're all sharing the information, the wealth. And I think the team took a lot more from that session than probably some of the other sessions, simply because they realize that there is knowledge internally and they can capitalize on that.
Yep. Great. Well, thanks very much for that, Peter and Angelina. I know
No worries. You're welcome.
you're building up to a longer presentation sometime in the future. So is there any details about that, or is that still to come out?
I'll throw that one at Shan. When is it?
Yeah, it's I should check on the dates. It's on the 17th, pretty sure, but it's out in the social medias anyway, so you can see it on LinkedIn and on all of our formats anyway. Upcoming webinar. So or jump onto our Bluebeam page, you'll see it there, but I won't push too hard on the MelBUG.
Yep. But if you are interested, keep an eye out for that. There'll be a deeper dive on some of that work that they've done there at Arcadis. But yeah, really appreciate what you shared today.
No worries.
Great.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, now switching to something a bit more specific and technical, and I think it really lends well to that conversation. We've got Chris, who's just recently rejoined us here at ACOM, and it's got some really nice workflows around the quality of life, he calls it, in Bluebeam. And for those that are in Bluebeam every day, I think these are some really key things that Chris brings to really building that efficiency. So I'll hand it over to you to dive into some content.
Cool. Cheers, guys, and thanks, guys, from Arcadis to see kind of what you guys are doing. It's pretty, you know, I didn't even see that. I didn't know about like the dashboard kind of side of things. It's quite cool, and yeah, it's just must be so much work to try and kind of wrangle a whole organization to get a standard kind of together, which is amazing. I just wanted to show a couple of things, which is going to be, yeah, as mentioned, a bit more, I guess, technical. Just let me know if you can see my screen and I'll start off.
Yep, we've got that.
Cool. So I guess, yeah, it's more of, I just wanted to show a couple of things, which is what I've kind of found. They might be very simple as well. So, you know, if everyone's kind of using Bluebeam a lot more kind of in this group, maybe it's all, you know, these things, but I hope you can take kind of something away just to kind of speed up or just make you click kind of less throughout the day if you're really doing a lot of Bluebeam on those occasions, doing tender sets or whatever markups and stuff. So one kind of point, I haven't looked into this too much, but I found for a while until I've kind of returned, you can go into the preferences in Bluebeam and then go to advanced, and you have your 2D rendering kind of tab, which is all about, I guess, how much your page or window refreshes. Usually I keep these three ticked. If you mess with the blend modes, you can make it a lot more responsive. Say when you're working with kind of architectural PDFs that for some reason are heavy on the rendering, or I don't know, take quite a drain on your computer to just open them from certain hatches and stuff. That can be quite good to turn off, but it's a setting blend modes that will kind of speed up this responsiveness, but you'll lose the detail of some hatching or some opacity in the set. But as for everything else, kind of ties in with the majority of us working from home, changing the rendering mode to effectively update the screen that you zoom in, and maybe I'll show this a bit later, or we'll see kind of how we have time, but you can play around with the different rendering modes and it'll be like an iterative update. So if you zoom in a little bit or you're panning around, Bluebeam can try and give you a up-to-date preview of kind of where you're at. But if you change that to wait for completion, it won't render the entire kind of page or what you're looking at until you stop kind of doing actions. So quite helpful for, again, if you're working off a little computer in a big file effectively, or if for whatever reason you just you know where you need to pan to and you don't want the PDF to be loading each time while you try and pan across or make updates. So these are just a couple of you can play around, tick and then not tick, and see kind of works for you. I don't really have a kind of standard on. These are just my settings that I find that just helps be a bit more responsive. I was going to click this, but I realized it's a PowerPoint. But that's the next thing. not sure if this will be helpful. I really enjoy having kind of all the tools kind of available, and my setup with this custom toolbar that you can see here. When I'll go through kind of setting this up, but my main driver for setting this these toolbars up is just to have all the buttons and alignments in a way that made sense to me. So you can kind of see up here all the alignments and distribute horizontally, and so I've got all the measurement tools here, and then the alignments, certain kind of more document based things, and then text to about here, and then the rest is kind of lines. I guess this text color should be over here, but it makes more sense to be over here because this is my kind of colors area, and then a line preview and different options. The main driver for doing this was similar to, I guess, other programs that have toolbars that are broken up. So if all your measurements areas were in one little toolbar, if you ever knock or you click and drag any of these toolbars, it can kind of mess up the layout. I was finding, I'll go kind of across a bit more. I was finding that I would accidentally grab these toolbars, and then it would mess up the layout of all my little toolbars. So I just put them into two, which effectively I lock. I'm sure you could lock the other ones too, but anyway, this is easy to kind of set up and have everything where you need it to be. And you can't, if you lock the toolbars, then you won't accidentally drag them onto your screen and have to try and put them back. And just maybe it's a bit more of a little thing that annoys me, but I found that helpful. Additionally, you can change your the three toolbars at the bottom to show, I guess, what you need and not anything more. So I've taken out a bunch of the extra options, and then I've just got like a dimmer switch. This is a disable line weights, which is quite good if you are looking at maybe shop drawings, or if, again, architectural PDFs have kind of heavy line weights next to small line weights. To thinner line weights, or anything you can really think of. So it's quite useful when marking things up. Just kind of demonstrating to maybe have a look at your Bluebeam and see what you don't use, and if you're not using it, maybe it might be a bit easier just to not have it on the screen. If you want to have a look at editing your toolbars, just into tools, toolbars, and then this is the lock thing I spoke about earlier. You've just got the dots that are next to your toolbar. You can drag it around. Otherwise, effectively, you have toolbars that you can make and share with others that are saved in the profile, and then you can move and add separators and gaps and stuff, so you can kind of lay out as you need. And you can see here that I've got navigation bars in yellow, which is what icons show up here, central and to the right, as well as my two custom toolbars, which is just if a new tool gets added, I find it in just the categories and drag it across, and then you can set up with separators as you need. As I mentioned, these get saved in the profiles. If anyone's not working with anything other than the Review Advanced, I would suggest making any changes and then saving your own profile, or if the company has one. This is where I guess you would load it in, either import it or just double click the file. Another thing I've just started, as Ben mentioned, or Lockie mentioned, I'm just coming back into ACOM, so I have a bit more time to kind of look into these things. With Bluebeam Ultimate, you can run scripts. I've been finding making a little script for literally just grayscaling and making your opacity lighter or the luminosity lighter for your markups has been quite helpful, quite easy to do. You can look at the help files, but you can make a new button and edit it, and you can also add that to your toolbar. So I've got this here. So pretty much every time I'm doing a shop drawing, or if I'm doing a markup, I just click this, and then it just gives me my preferred, I guess, starting point. Again, you can still just go into document color processing and do that, but this is just a quick little thing to just reduce the amount of clicks. I guess the last one is how, you know, it's not maybe this procedure, I guess, and workflow is not fully set up here as much as it is with Arcadis. It's pretty amazing. I know the guys in Melbourne have been doing quite a lot of good work as well with having tool sets and all that, with certain color coordinated comments for drafters and for engineers, and just general comments not to be included. Hopefully, maybe, well, that might have been in a previous presentation or is going to be one in the future, but this is just something I mentioned that I've found quite useful, is having all my comments off screen, and then with a maybe like quite a light gray line weight, so that when you zoom out, you can see all the kind of comments that you have had or information that you know you need to include. But when you zoom into a full page view, you can see the leaders are here, but they don't impose too much. So you can get an overall picture of what the markup's kind of looking for. But when you go back, you can say, oh, okay, cool, I've got to address this, or a certain color might be for somebody else, for either you know, the graduate or the senior engineer or the verifier, either it's an update or a question for them. So I found that that's been quite useful in just making sure I capture everything, or if I'm going through like a tender set such as this, just dropping a leader in and just saying, oh yeah, I need to get back to this. So it's quite good, and then you'll have just, you know, your comments as you want them. That's pretty much all I had to say. I think that was maybe a little bit longer, but we still got 10 minutes for the rest, so that's good. If anyone was interested in the profile that I just shared below, before, you can find it in just this tiny URL link that I've put up. I know this has been recorded, so I'll probably not be sharing it for, you know, forever. So in YouTube, sorry, it's probably not going to be hosted unless it's through maybe the another avenue. But for the guys that are here now, you can just go to that if you are interested in having a look at it. And so you can just type in URL MelBUG and then quality of life or -QOL. And yeah, you can take that and edit it as you see fit, or not, and that's okay. But yeah, these are just a couple of things that I've found make my life a bit easier. So hopefully they can make your life a bit easier too.
Good work, Chris. It's you know, it's I completely agree in the sense, like, we've had Deepak present a couple of times, and you know, Deepak, I like his presentation. He's like, you know, he likes to say, I'm a lazy person, so I like to try and find an easier way to make things quicker and easier for me. And that's old school drafting mentality as well. So yeah, definitely appreciate your tips and tricks there. I'll pick up some of those. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, any questions? Megan's put just a comment in there about making sure you save that. Obviously you can customize it and lose it. You can also embed the tool chests inside the profile if you click the right buttons as well. That can make deployment a lot easier, kind of, so you don't have to obviously hand out individual files. It just depends on the process that you want to use there. But yeah, definitely that customization, particularly when you're been using Bluebeam for a while and you kind of know what you want. I think that's the key to keep building upon that. And obviously, if you can deploy that out to a whole team like Arcadis has shown, that's you really get the efficiencies and makes it easy to train people. I think that's the hardest thing at the moment, isn't it? That everyone's got a different profile and, you know, the buttons are in different spots. That's for software that's reasonably simple, it can be complicated. I find that's probably the hardest learning curve on Bluebeam. It's kind of everything looks quite similar. There's not really an easy way to guide users to which button to hit, and particularly when you can customize it so much.
There's a link. Thanks, Chris.
Great. Yeah, so good to get some more technical content in there. I know a lot of people have questions about scripts and JavaScripting and things like that. It is a very technical topic, but we try and bring you some of that stuff where we can. But there's a good community out there of people that are willing to help as well. So I'm sure Shannon can get you in touch with the right people as well. But one we'd like to explore a bit more in future. And also, yeah, where to find this information is another topic we've thought about. There's a lot of good locations where you can find things like scripting support, but it's not always easy to track that down. So to share that centrally would be quite good. All right, so that's the core of our topics today. So we do have, an opportunity to share one of Deepak's books again this year. So he's been in touch and he would like to give away a couple of books. For those that are picking up Bluebeam, particularly, this is the Bible, I would say. Deepak's pretty well known. It's not kind of supported by Bluebeam directly. It is independent. Deepak does create this from scratch along with these other books that he does on Navisworks, etc. But it is kind of a very good central resource for learning Bluebeam, particularly those who want to do something a bit more strategic and a bit more technical. So it is out there. So we do have one book to give away today. We were going to do something a bit more complicated to make you work for it, but given we don't have a lot of time left, I think we'll park that for next time. We'll try and do something a bit more interactive, but I do have a list of everyone and I'm going to hit a random choice selection. Let's make sure he's still here. Got to check now if he's still in the meeting. A few people have jumped out. He is still here, but I got Ken from ACOM. It's not rigged. It's randomly drawn his name, Ken. So
That sounds dodgy. This sounds so dodgy. Yeah.
I can show it on the screen.
It's all right. It's all right.
He's here. We're just sharing the one account.
Yeah.
Turn your mic on, Ken.
But we will have another one next month. So yeah, and those who did get in on the early, well, I would say the early bird, but there was a random, or not a random, but the first 10 people to register for the Uber Eats vouchers. I think hopefully you've claimed that and got something lined up for lunch just after this. Yeah, thanks to Bluebeam for supporting us with getting that out there as well, just to get some more signups. So yeah, we'll move to talking about what's next. As we started at the start, this really is centered around topics that you want to hear about and ideally topics you want to present on. We do have some good content lined up, and particularly towards the middle of the year, we think there's some big announcements around the platform, as always, as they release the new versions. So we'll keep you posted on that. But if you do have topics you want to hear about, dashboards is one that's come out of this. I think it's definitely something that's underutilized. It does seem simple, but I guess seeing examples of people of how they're using them would be great. So if you've got examples around that or something you've seen or a lead for us, definitely get in touch. So we've tentatively got about 7th of June will be our next one, but we'll release some more details on that. So definitely sign up to the LinkedIn group. There's some good content that gets shared on there as well. And also track the Bluebeam APAC page, which has a lot of info on there on other events, and that will include the deeper dive of the Arcadis story as well, which is coming up as Shan said. So definitely track the social medias for those ones. But otherwise, you can get in touch with us at our committee email as well, and happy to answer any questions or take submissions for topics. And the video will be up on the YouTube probably usually about a week after this session, and you've got all the old meetings there as well. So definitely share those around to your colleagues and others in industry, and you can find the other geographies as well on there. Not as many global ones these days, but there is some other good content on there as well. But yeah, so thanks again for attending, everyone. Really appreciate the speakers, Arcadis, fantastic content, and Chris as well. Really appreciate everyone, and hope everyone has a great week. If you're attending Build, have a great time up there. First face-to-face conference for quite a while in Sydney there. But otherwise, we'll see you in June.
Definitely. Come to the Build. Come and say hello. It'd be great. See everybody. Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in.
Cool.
See everyone. Thanks, speakers.
Cheers. Thanks, guys.
See everybody.
Thank you.
Ben, quick question for you,
Thanks a
Eve.
lot.
Ben?